This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic.
This one's wife. Is she a sex freak? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Sex. Plenty of people have had it, plenty of people do it, and plenty of people want it. Sex, for the narcissist, is a weapon of mass seduction. What does sex give the narcissist? Well, you really ought to know by now that, like anything that involves an interaction with another human being, sex is the highway that allows the narcissist to get to the prime aims. Sex is a means of controlling people. Sex is a means of drawing fuel from them by way of their responses, the oohs, the ahs, the give it to me baby, aha, all of that is fuel. The fact that somebody has an orgasm provides fuel. The fact that someone might shirk away from a particular sexual practice provides fuel. It can, in some instances, allow the acquisition of character traits, particularly where the narcissist might get their freak on with somebody else equally freaky and learn some new techniques and tricks and maneuvers. It also provides residual benefits. The fact is that in some instances, a narcissist may monetize sex, for instance, by having an OnlyFans account or becoming a prostitute. That they may use their sexuality to sell items. And furthermore, there is the residual benefit of the fact that it feels good. Yes, we have nerve endings too. And therefore, the pleasurable sensations that come from sex are a residual benefit. But like most things for the narcissist, it's principally about controlling people and drawing fuel. As I've explained in my excellent book, Sex and the Narcissist, and you really, really ought to read that. You can find it on Amazon or in the Knowledge Vault, link in the video description. In essence, the narcissist masturbates with your body when having sex, which I'm sure is a cheering thought for you. Why is the narcissist's use of sex so effective? Well, invariably, the victim of a narcissist is an empathic individual, and empaths tend to bundle sex and intimacy and love all together. Yes, there are instances where there's a quickie knee trembler, where they see that as less about love and more about getting a sexual kick. But in the main, those three things are bundled together, and therefore sex is seen as an expression of love and desire and intimacy, which plays into the love devotee trait of the empath. And therefore, the provision of sex signals to that empath that they're wanted, that they're desired, that they are loved. And that gives them that warm, prurient feeling in their stomach and makes them easier to control. Sex is effective because, for most people, it's a pleasurable experience. And, as a consequence of that, the other party gets something out of it as well. Certain individuals, of course, are more giving sexually than they necessarily may take. But they get something from it, which makes it effective. For those who are an empath, their addiction to the narcissist seizes upon sex as a means of telling them that they're desired, that they are loved, that they crave more of it, that they see it as a major signal of the bond between them and the narcissist. Being desired by someone, being an object of sexual attention, causes people to feel flattered also, and their own narcissistic traits of pride respond to that. Sex gives the narcissist what the narcissist requires vis-a-vis the prime aims. It is hugely effective in terms of getting people under control and causing them to offer up that fuel. All narcissists use sex to some degree for the purposes of getting to the prime aims. But the cadre of narcissist which uses sex the most is the somatic narcissist. Now, that doesn't mean that every single somatic narcissist is a sexual Olympian or sex freak. Their somaticism might link more to their appearance, looking ripped and buffed or beautiful and all done up and glamorous, that it might link to being seen in the right places, being seen at glamorous events, of having money, there are lots of different strands to the somatic, but generally speaking, most somatics love having sex because it's such a useful driver for them to get to the prime aims. And invariably, somatic narcissists tend, although it's not always the case because they can also be deluded with regard to their physical appearance, but often they tend to be handsome, beautiful, attractive, sexy. They wear sexy clothing. They have cosmetic surgeries which will enhance them. And therefore, they're particularly desirable in that respect. Remember, there are exceptions. So I'm not saying that every somatic narcissist is drop-dead gorgeous and that they always wear sexy clothing and they're at it like rabbits. But in general terms, that's applicable. Somatics tend on the whole to have a lot of sex, which then means they're often rather good at it. They know what makes people tick. They know what gets people off. And that heightens their effectiveness vis-a-vis the pursuit of the prime aims. I emphasize that you might get some somatic narcissists who are less sexual because their somaticism arises from different factors, but in the main, as a general rule, most somatic narcissists want lots of sex, have lots of sex, have had many sexual partners, often are conducting affairs, and are often very good in the sack. But with some narcissists, you might describe them as sex freaks. Now, in terms of sex, it's a memorable quote that essentially states that the only unnatural sex act is one that you can't perform, i.e., if you can do it, it must be natural because you can do it. Of course, there are those that will say that there are certain more mainstream sexual behaviours, and there are those which are somewhat different and alternative, which aren't necessarily for everybody. And whilst those alternative sexual practices are not the whole preserve of narcissists, you'll often find that they're inhabited by a lot of narcissists. Why is that? Well, first of all, the ability of the narcissist to objectify their sexual partner goes a long way to enabling them to do the more freakish things with them because they simply see them as an object. They don't see them as a human being that has hopes and fears and desires, etc. They're there to be used. So in the same way, your television set doesn't work, so you give it a slap, or you might even smash it in a fit of ignited fury when you're a narcissist. Similarly, the narcissist treats a human being as an object, doing all sorts of things to it because it's an object. There's a lack of boundary recognition, so that the narcissist will push things further than a non-narcissist, that they will engage in behaviours which go further than other people might go. There is a sense of entitlement. I am the god of sex. I will give you what you need. And therefore, that propels the narcissist to do what they require sexually. The absence of emotional empathy means that they don't care what the impact is upon their sexual partner other than controlling them and drawing fuel from them. And in some instances, if it upsets them, too bad. The narcissist will feast on that negative fuel. The fact that the pursuit of the prime aims will also advocate behaving in a more sexually freakish fashion, because the provocation that's caused can elicit a much stronger fuel response and also enables the narcissist to test the limits of control as well. Thus, with certain narcissists, you would regard some of their sexual practices as a bit freakish. What about this one's wife? Well, I have explained to you previously that she is a somatic narcissist. She's motivated by appearances. She thinks she looks great even though she doesn't. She likes to wear expensive clothing. She likes to wear expensive jewelry. She wants to be seen at events. She wants to be seen as glamorous. She wants to be part of the Hollywood A-list. She has a preoccupation with money. And she's hypersexualized. We know from Harry that it's clear that they've had a lot of rumpy-pumpy in the past. There's been plenty of games of hide the sausage. Indeed, he was often known as Blowjob, and that his mood was affected by whether she had got down and played with little Harry. We also know that Harry said she'll let you do anything, and therefore that points to her not only having a voracious sexual appetite, that as lashings of spicy poontang provided, but furthermore, the fact is that she was willing to engage in a variety of more freakish, you might describe, or more alternative sexual practices. There is the suggestion, of course, that she was caught in a particular video engaging in felching a particular individual in a movie. There's the suggestion of her being involved in roasting the chicken, which the Urban Dictionary provides us with the appropriate explanation for that. Thus, her somatic nature, allied with what Harry has said about her, and the suggestion, for instance, that she plied her trade as servicing men as a yacht girl, that there are rumours about certain things that she got up to in Dubai, points to the likelihood of her being something of a sex freak, that she engages in behaviours which are perfectly fine between consenting adults, but that many people might see as perhaps distasteful, things that they wouldn't necessarily do themselves, and they're not necessarily being prudes, but that she would engage in the more out there sexual practices. And her narcissism allows her to do that, as I've explained, because of the objectification, lack of boundary recognition, sense of entitlement, and lack of emotional empathy. In essence, it's anything to keep the party going that her narcissism says. Swing from that chandelier and then spank him with a stick of celery whilst getting gangbanged by that football team that engage in all manner of things in terms of insertion in orifices, etc. I'm going to refrain from going into too much detail to avoid this video getting banned, of course, but I'll leave it to your imagination to think about some of the sexual practices that she may well have engaged in the past, particularly when was allegedly the hire. Remember, in those circumstances, it may well be the case of a clash of narcissists whereby one paying money for her services does so because they want to engage in more freakish activities because they can and because they can pay for it, and she is willing to do so because she's earning money, allegedly, from doing so, and that she, governed by her narcissism, has no apprehension about engaging in the more bizarre sexual practices, that her narcissism simply says, go for it. If this allows you to control the recipient, earn a residual benefit of money, gain fuel from their orgasmic reactions, fill your boots, girl. Get down and do it. There's no recalling, there's no repugnance, there's no displeasure. She's up for it. Whilst we don't have specific evidence of some of the things that she might have done, given the fact that she's a somatic narcissist that is hypersexualized, and given some pieces of evidence that have been provided by Harry, the suggestions of being a yacht girl, she's had numerous sexual partners, the suggestions about things that she did whilst in Dubai, in those circumstances, the likelihood is that she very much has got her freak on when it comes to sexual activity, which is all part and parcel of enabling her to get the prime aims. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Do you think that despite her being a beige individual, that in the sack is really the only place that she shows any imagination and a willingness to do all things? Or do you think actually she just has a lot of mainstream sex and that there isn't the freakishness associated? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.